Okay, so last time we talked about the introductory aspect of literature, and we started with the definition, we started with the features, the characteristics of literature. So let's do a little summary before we go into what we have proper. Now, we said literature is defined as a mirror of the society. And why we are sticking to that definition as literature students is because over time we've come to read different literary texts, and we have seen that every writer has a message he's trying to pass through. And that message is something that we see in the society. Now, some scholars have come to use this quote that literature is not written in a vacuum. What that means is you cannot just write anything you want to write about any topic without revolving it around life and society. So whatever the writer is writing, it's about human existence, it's about culture, life and everything. And the sum total is all about society. Now today we're going to look at one serious engagement in literature, one genre of literature, which is prose. And like we said in our introductory class, we said prose is different from drama, same way drama is different from poetry. Now we're going to see the things that make prose different from every other aspect of literature, the features of prose. First of all, very important, now this is one of the distinctive features of prose from the other genres of literature. Prose is written in chapters. Plays are written in acts and scenes. Poems are written in verses, lines and stanzas. But prose itself is written in chapter. Now, a writer picks up a book, and like we said too, yes, in our previous engagement, we said that someone that writes a prose is called a novelist. Now, our viewers out there, while we're bringing out these points for you to see, is that these points we are putting on the board are the things that make prose different from other genres of literature. And I would say the first one is that a prose is written in chapters. If you pick up any novel, the first thing you see chapter 1. Now, chapter 1, you see the first sentence. This first sentence goes to the first paragraph. The first paragraph, second, third, and what you have, and then you have the second, third, fourth, fifth, until how many chapters the writer wants to write. And then something we want us to take note of is we have different types of prose. Different types of prose in the sense that when a novel is short, now viewers, a short story is called a novella. It's called a novella, while a full-length novel is called a novel. Now, a novella could be within, let's say, 10 to 50 pages. That's the length of a novella. While from 50, you could have some novels that span over 1,000, 2,000, 3,000 pages, depending on what the novelist want to write out there. Now, it's very important for us to note this difference between a novel and a novella. Not every prose fiction you pick you can refer to as a novel. Whilst one is a novella, which is a short story, the other one is a novel, which is more lengthier than the novella itself. Now, we want to see other things too that differentiates our prose from other genres of literature, and that is the types of prose that we have. Types of prose. Now viewers, I would want us to take this part very importantly, because whichever way outside the study of literature we are going to come in contact with these types of prose, so we could be able to identify them when we see them. The first one is called fiction. Fiction. Okay, now since it's a literature class, I'm going to give us a little bit of fiction. Now, growing up then, there's this popular fiction we all had. People call it Moonlight Tales, Tales by Moonlight. Our grandparents, they would sit us down. And then they would tell us the story of Tortoise, who was a very greedy animal. He went to the heaven for a meeting with every other animal on earth. And when they got to the heavens, they said they met some persons there. The story didn't tell us if they met God or an angel, but they met some persons. On meeting them, the persons told them that, okay, what are your names? And Tortoise introduced himself as all of us. And when it was time for sharing the food and everything that they brought to the party, the man that brought the host said, this food is for all of us. And Tortoise told them, okay, animals, they said this food is for all of us and my name is all of us, so I'm the only one that is going to partake of it. And then the tortoise ate the meal alone. When they are going to return back, the birds, all of them had wings. They collected the wings that had borrowed Tortoise to fly down to heaven, and he could not go. So at the end of the day, the story told, there are different versions of the story. Some versions said Tortoise had to beg his wife, send a message down to his wife to bring out a bed and all that so he could fly from heaven and jump down. And when he got down, he broke his back. And that is how he came up with the broken back. Now these are different types of fiction that we have. There are a lot of them in various cultures. Now these stories did not happen in real life. They did not happen in real life. Nobody heard about them. Nobody experienced them. But it's an imaginative work of art. It's an imaginative work of art. It's a product of the writer's imagination. That is what fiction is all about. A writer could just sit down anywhere, think about anything, and start writing. It's imaginative. The writer can come out with different names, different locations, different storylines. But at the end of the day, like the story of the tortoise we talked about, at the end of the day, there's a moral lesson that the writer wants to send to us. The story of why the tortoise lost his back is teaching us that greed in all form is bad. It was because of tortoise's greed that was why he lost his back. So, despite the way these writers portray this fiction to us, if you look at the bigger picture, there is a message they want to pass to their listeners out there, even if it's an imaginative work of art. Now, they bring in so many things to make this imagination work. First of all, characters. The characters are highly fictitious. When I mean fictitious, these people do not exist. People bearing those names never existed anywhere. They are not in any history book. So the writer can sit down somewhere, conjure up some names in his head, and put them together to make the characters. And then the setting. The setting too is filled with fiction. Like our example of the tortoise we talked about. Of course, we know no animal can go to the heavens to go and meet God or meet the angels or anybody. So the setting too is filled of fiction. It does not exist. So everything that makes up the fiction itself, it's all a product of the writer's imagination. That is why we call it an imaginative work. Then the second type is what we have as non-fiction. Non-fiction. Now, it's very simple for us to understand, viewers, why one is fiction, why the other one is non-fiction. But for the purpose of this class, we'll take our time to explain the non-fiction and tell us what they are all about. Now, non-fiction are works of art that are real life. These are real life stories, real time events. These events happened in real life. And we have different categories of work that fall into it. Now, we said this is imaginative. This is real life. First of all, we will talk about autobiography. Now, autobiography is a story of one's life and time written by himself. A story of one's life and time written by himself. Now, some persons, because they have done well, maybe a politician, a businessman, a military man or what have you, that has done well in his own field of study or career, the person can decide to say while he's alive he wants to write a biography, how he lived his life, what and what he did. Now this is not fiction. Why it is not fiction is because the person that is writing the story, the person's biography, the person will write where he was born, the time, the place, how he lived his life, where he went to school, if he got married, the name of his wife, where they met and all that. These are real-time stories. They happened. If you want to go and verify, you can get all the sources. But for fiction, even if you take your time to verify the story, you will end up wasting your time because the stories are not real. They are product of imagination. But for fiction, everything you read in it are real life stories. Now, another one is biography. So, biography is different from autobiography. Why autobiography is a story of a person written by the person itself. That's why it's auto. Biography is written by someone else. And we find these cases when probably the person is deceased, when the person is dead, and probably to document the life and times of the person, the relative or any close person could just write the biography. This is non-fiction and it is factual. It is factual in the sense that everything the person has written there, even if it is a handed testimony, what I mean by handed testimony is that somebody relates the story to you about the person and you write. Whichever way it is, there are facts in it. It's not like fiction that's all about imagination. So that's that for the types of prose. And then, aside biography, there's another one, or it's not so common today, but that students of literature is important to know it. It's called diary. It's called diary. Now, people keep records, inventory of their life, probably weekly, daily, monthly, annually, whichever way they want to do it. But the reason for it is, the diary is like a timeline for everything that happens in that person's life. Every time the person goes down to write, and usually it's about moments, memories that they don't want to lose. Sometimes it could be happy moments, sad moments, whichever moments they have gone through in their life. They put it together in their diary. Sometimes too, it could also be things they wanted to achieve, desires they had in mind, fictions they wanted to. They write it down in their diary, and the diary guides them. This is non-fiction, and it does not really have any rule guiding it, in the sense that the person writing a personal diary can decide to write it whichever way he wants to write it. It's his diary. But the essential part we want to know as students of literature is that it is not fiction, it is real life, it is factual. There's nothing that is cock and bull about the story like that of the tortoise we talked about. So that's that for the types of prose. And for us to do a little recap before we continue, we said that the short story is called a novella, a writer of prose is called a novelist, and prose is written in chapters. Now, as time goes on, we will get to see the various books that will be recommended for students in senior secondary school in literature, the various novels. We'll take them one after the other. And while we're taking them one after the other, there are certain things we will now be looking at. First of all, as students of literature, you don't read a novel for the purpose of fun. You don't just pick up a novel to read and let's say I want to while away time, I want to kill boredom. No. As a student of literature, we read in between lines. We read to get the meaning and the message of what the book is all about. Now, in exam conditions, you might be asked, okay, what is the viewpoint of the writer? From what angle is the writer writing from? Now, if you have read the book simply because of fun, you won't be able to understand the viewpoint of the writer. You won't know the angle the writer is writing from. And then that reminds us of what is called narration in prose. Now, this is where the narrator, the writer, has decided to write a story. Some persons use what we call the first person narrative. Now, in the first person narrative, the writer writes the story like he's writing about himself. You often hear pronouns like I. Now, that is to say that the writer is part of the story. So he uses the pronoun like I. It's a first person narrative. He's narrating from his own viewpoint. He is involved in the story. But sometimes you could hear of second person narrative. When it comes to the second person narrative, you hear things like he or she. Now, there's also what we call the omniscient point of view. Now, in the omniscient point of view, the writer is not involved in any of the stories. He just goes ahead telling the story, telling us everything. It's usually called the eye of God. Now, it's called the eye of God because the writer knows everything The narrator knows everything about the story in details and how it's going to end. Now these are the narrative techniques of prose. Now as we also go forward, we're also going to see what is called the diction. Diction is a language, the way the writer has chosen to write his work. Now some persons will write in a language that is easy to understand. Some also can decide to write in a language that is not easy to understand. Not easy to understand in the sense that it can be filled with big grammatical expressions, and those who are reading it will not find it easy to read it. While some writers decide to write in everyday language, you can hear pidgins, slangs in their work. So it depends on whichever way the writer wants to write. That is that about the diction. But it's a very important aspect of prose, because without diction you can't write. And aside prose, even play, diction, language is very important too in all genres of literature. Now, we'll quickly wipe the board and then take a look at another genre of literature. And that is play. Now in our previous engagement, we said that play and drama is also a subgenre of literature. Now play is meant to be acted on stage. It's a work of art meant to be acted on stage. And there are different things, different characteristics, different features of a play. We are going to look at them. Number one is character. Number two, costume. Number three is setting. We've written character, we've written costume, we've written setting. We have what is called dialogue. Monologue. Aside. And soliloquy. Now the characters with an X are the different people that make up a work of art. They are the different people that are involved in the work of art in a play. Now we have the round character, flat character. Now we said the round character is a character that changes its form in the work of art. It can take any shape, it can take any form in the work of art. As the work progresses, different things that affect the progression of the work can make the character to change. The character is not static, it's not flat. But for a flat character, the character is stuck. It doesn't change. It takes the form he takes from the start, that is what he retains to the end of the work. Now we have what is called costume. Now costume is basically the outfits, the clothing worn by characters in the play. Now this costume shows the role they are playing. If somebody's playing the role of a doctor now or a farmer, the material, the cloth the person is wearing on stage will make the audience to understand what role the person is playing. We have what is called setting. The setting is simply where the play is located. The play there has to be a location where the play is set. That's the setting. That's to do with the location and time. Very important. Then we have what's called dialogue. The dialogue is a conversation between two or more characters in the play. A dialogue is a conversation between two or more characters in the play. We have what is called monologue. Monologue is a conversation, a discussion by just one person. When one person is talking in the play is a monologue. When two or more characters are talking is dialogue. Now, monologue, aside, and soliloquy are under the same category, but there's a difference. In aside, the characters are talking on the stage. They go to a part of the stage to talk. Other characters on stage do not hear them. The audience oftentimes too do not hear them. It's just between the both of them. Soliloquy is a discussion that a character is having on stage. Only the character is talking. Probably he's soliloquizing about something he's having a deep thought. Other characters on stage do not hear him, but the audience hear him. So these are some of the features of a play or drama. Now, someone that writes a play is known as a playwright. A writer of a play is known as a playwright. And we said too that these and others are the features of playwriting. Now in our classes, next classes that we'll come to see different kind of play, what and what we'll look out for in the play, the literary device that has been employed by the playwright in writing the play. But what are we going to see in our next engagement? We're going to be talking about literary devices. Why literary devices are very important is because without literary devices you can't have literature. These are the various devices employed by the writer to bring out a beautiful work of art. So for now, we will stop at the introduction of literature we've discussed in our previous engagement, the genres of literature, and in our next class we will look forward to literary devices. Thank you and see you next time.